the Rubin Report. Kid rubbed his legs.
I've never seen hardly any black people.
Figurines.
I am going to El Salvador.
Something a gang member might do. Might behead a giraffe.
No.
Wow, damn, girl. MSNBC 13.
Romance.
Soundwave the Decepticon.
What does that mean?
The lizard, it's trying to get out of him. All right, what is up, people? I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. It is April 17th in the year 2025. We are live streaming right now. It's happening live, people. It's true. On Rumble, on YouTube, and on Locals. We've got a post-game show, as always, rubinreport.locals.com, and that is how you help keep us independent. And today is, the second half of the show, that is a rubinreport.locals.com community Q&A. We're going to start, we're going to get away a little bit. We are going to talk about El Salvador, don't worry, and I do have toys ready to go in case they are needed to explain it to the slower people. But we're going to get away a little bit from that for a moment. I'm going to start with some RFK autism stuff, because Bobby Kennedy said all along in his gruff voice that he was going to come in and he was going to significantly change HHS and get us off the seed oils and look at our farming habits and look at the soil and look at the vaccines and what we're putting in our body and all that. And finally, some things are happening. So this, I would say, is completely congruent with everything else that we've seen happen on the positive side, which is that we're taking care of the border. We're looking at trade deals. We're starting to, deport illegal criminal aliens, some of whom are gang members from, say, El Salvador, et cetera, et cetera. So let's just dive right in. I've got this from NBC News. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said Wednesday that the agency will announce within 3 weeks a series of studies aimed at identifying environmental toxins he claims are responsible for a dramatic rise in autism rates in children in the U.S. Pediatricians and other health experts have attributed the increase largely to greater awareness and better surveillance of the disorder. Autism's definition has also broadened to identify milder cases, which has contributed to more diagnoses. Despite evidence that suggests there is no single cause of autism, Kennedy is vowing to uncover an underlying reason by September. We know it's an environmental exposure. It has to be, Kennedy said. Genes do not cause epidemics. It can provide a vulnerability. You need an environmental toxin. So there's some interesting things if you were really paying attention to what I read right there. So Bobby's basically saying that there's environmental factors. Could it be what we're eating? Could it be what a pregnant woman is ingesting? Could it be the air we're breathing? Could it be the water we're drinking? So environmental factors. Could it have something to do with early vaccines or the vaccine schedule for kids, et cetera, et cetera? Then in the piece that I read right there, they're also referencing that the definition of autism over the years has widened. So I was discussing it with my guys before the show. When I was growing up, or when I was in grade school, it was like there was one, I don't know that we even talked about autism per se, but there was one kid who maybe was a little bit different, who seemed like a little more advanced maybe, but was kind of quirky, weird eye contact, sort of like dorky, sort of, and he was just like kind of the different kid. Now, maybe back then they were calling that autism. I don't really remember that. But over the years, especially for people who are in their 20s and 30s, like I have in this room, it started being that 3, 4, 5, 6 plus kids in your class had autism because they were a little bit weird or whatever. Now, is that partly because of environmental factors? Is it partly because of social media? Is it because of helicopter parenting? Like there's all, the way we treat kids, all of these things. Well, we're going to try to uncover some of that. But the numbers as it relates to how many kids have autism, whether it's the strictest definition of autism or, as I said, this sort of widening, there's this widening thing. Oh, you have Asperger's, which is a funny name for this sort of thing. It's not what it sounds like. That you have that, or just like, sort of like cold case autism. The numbers are going up. There's simply no doubt about that. Here's Bobby talking about that.
The ASD prevalence rate in 8-year-olds is now 1 in 31. Shocking. There's an extreme risk for boys. Overall, the risk for boys of getting an autism diagnosis in this country is now 1 in 20. And as high in California, which has the best data collection. So it probably also reflects the national trend, 1 in 12.5 boys. This is part of an unrelenting upward trend. The prevalence 2 years ago was 1 in 36. If the epidemic is an artifact, a better diagnostic criteria or better recognition, then why are we not seeing it in older people? Why is this only happening in young people?
The numbers are pretty staggering, but before I get into that, I just want to read this. The two main features of an autistic child are persistent deficits in social communication and social interaction and restricted repetitive patterns of behavior, interests, or activities. So we all see a lot of this with younger people, and it's sort of been, what would be the word? It's sort of been culturalized in a sense. Like if you look on X all the time, and even Elon tweets about this, like the day of the autist has arrived. Like these young, it's usually boys who play video games obsessively, who don't have normal functional relationships. I think you can probably connect some of this to why the dating rates are so low. Like there's some portion of this that, okay, there may be some environmental factors that are causing some level of chemical changes or something like that. But then it's also kind of how we live in the modern world, right? Because everybody's staring at the phone all day, and then your ability to communicate with people just old school like you used to starts becoming diminished. If you want to see another number, and then as per what Bobby said, I mean, 1 in 12 and a half kids. That's absolutely crazy. So this is why the Maha sort of joining the MAGA umbrella was so important. So you know what MAGA is, right? We're going to take care of the border. We're going to care about America first. Well, what kind of could fit right beneath that? Well, if you care about America, how about you care about the people who live in America? So care about what they're putting in their body and what foods they're eating and what they're being injected with, et cetera, et cetera. So we are starting to do exactly, again, this is just another one of those things that I've been bringing up. Trump and Elon and RFK, et cetera, they all promised a certain set of things, and all of these things are happening. Look at these numbers out of California. This is wild. This is the California Department of Developmental Services, and this is the rise in autism from 1989 to 2023, right? I mean, look at that number, 2024, sorry. I mean, look at that just consistent. I mean, that thing looks almost made up because it's so consistent. Now, again, some of this may be just baked into the numbers as they've expanded the definition of what autism is, but it obviously is not that. And we should be trying to get to the bottom of this as a nation. And that's another thing that Bobby just brought up.
This is an individual tragedy as well. Autism destroys families. More importantly, it destroys our greatest resource, which are our children. These are children who should not be suffering like this. These are kids who, many of them were fully functional and regressed because of some environmental exposure into autism when they're 2 years old. And these are kids who will never pay taxes. They'll never hold a job. They'll never play baseball. They'll never write a poem. They'll never go out on a date. Many of them will never use a toilet unassisted. And we have to recognize we are doing this to our children, and we need to put an end to it. And within 3 weeks, and probably we're hoping in 2 weeks, we're going to announce a series of new studies to identify precisely what the environmental toxins are that are causing it. This has not been done before. And we're going to do it in a thorough and comprehensive way, and we're going to get back to with an answer to the American people very, very quickly.
Look, the not paying taxes part, that sounds pretty good. The other stuff, not great. And we know that, right? When you see a family that has, say, a highly autistic child who just doesn't function, like can't hold a job because they can't really hold a conversation or make eye contact or communicate in the real world. And then they're sucked into, again, there's some connection between this, or it's just like a parallel problem that's running with the phone and social media and everything else. They're sucked into this digital world because it sort of is a force field about the problems that they're having in the real world. And the question is, as Bobby points out, why is it that there are so many incidents? And we all know them, like I know them. We all have personal experiences with this. Kids that are 2, 3, 4 years old, and then suddenly something goes awry. And that makes you think it's either environmental or it has something to do with vaccines or something else. I just want to bring up one other point on this because not only, as I said, is this one of the things that, Elon promised Doge and Trump promised the border and Bobby was promising we were going to look at all of this stuff. Bobby's been doing this for decades and decades and decades, warning about what's going on with vaccines, what's going on with autism and everything else. And by the way, don't take my advice on this. I'm not a doctor, but you should be thinking about all of these things, particularly if you have young children or you're going to have young children. Here he is. This is like 20 years ago on the televised, I'm not calling it that anymore. We'll have more on that in a second. Here he is on MSNBC with Joe Scarborough.
My son, born in 1991, has a slight form of autism called Asperger's. But it seems, and again, when I was practicing law, and also when I was in Congress, parents would constantly come to me, and they'd bring me videotapes of their children, and they were all around the age of my son or younger.
The generation,
so something happened in 1989.
Exactly. The generation, what happened was the vaccine schedule was increased. We went up from receiving about 10 vaccines in our generation to these kids received 24 vaccines. And they all had this thimerosal in them, this mercury, and nobody bothered to do an analysis of what the cumulative impact of all that mercury was doing to kids. As it turns out, we are injecting our children with 400 times the amount of mercury that FDA or EPA considers safe. A child on his first day that he's born is injected with a hepatitis B shot. Under EPA guidelines, he would have to be 275 pounds to safely absorb that shot.
And yet we're just constantly pumping our kids with these vaccines.
Right, and what happened...
All right, so again, that's about 20 years ago. He's been talking about this for a long time. We all know that the vaccine schedule, the amount of vaccines, as he said, in his generation, so he's talking about the boomer generation with Scarborough there, or like right under, he's somewhere between Gen X and boomer. It was about 10 vaccines. You can argue whether they all made sense and whether you should do all of them, and maybe it depends whether you live in a city or you live in a rural area or something like that. But that jumped then, they more than doubled to about 25 vaccines, and it subsequently has become even more than that. And that they were basically putting mercury, crazy amounts of mercury, in these vaccines. And what does that do to kids? We just checked. I used to have that running joke, I've said it a million times on the show, that when I was really poor and struggling, when I was doing stand-up in New York and I was doing odd jobs, I had a friend who was in food service, my buddy John, and he used to deliver me industrial size vacuum sealed bags of tuna. Giant bags of tuna. It comes in a bag when it's going to a restaurant. Like this giant thing. It would be literally 5 pounds of tuna. And I would survive on tuna for weeks on end. And I would also eat he would also bring me giant cans of chicken soup. So the amount of sodium and whatever. But I was always joking that I'm going to die of mercury poisoning because of the amount of tuna. Because there's obviously a ton of mercury in tuna. You're only supposed to eat 3 servings of tuna. I don't even know what a serving of tuna actually is as an adult. 4 ounces. So you're supposed to only have 4 ounces, so you can have 3 servings, and 1 serving is 4 ounces. So you can have 12 ounces basically of tuna for an adult. And yet, because of mercury, that's what they recommend. And yet we were pumping kids with all this. Anyway, we'll leave that there, but I just think it's interesting. Again, I keep talking about how we're trying to get through all of this bad stuff, right? We're trying to get through bad trade deals. We're trying to get through a bad border problem. We're trying to get through all the bad woke stuff as it relates to gender and race and all of those things. And another thing we're trying to get through is what our institutions and our experts did to, what they literally did to us and our children, because something went wrong. And putting aside whether it was intentional or not, or whether people like Fauci knew what they were doing when, he was studying mRNA vaccines, or when he was studying gain-of-function research in the Wuhan lab, and all of, in some sense, it doesn't matter, but we have an opportunity to clean it up. And I think it's important that we talk about it when we can. Let's talk about Rumble Premium for a second, and then I will likely bust out toys to explain what's going on with the illegal El Salvadorian gang member who was sent from Maryland back to El Salvador. And for some reason, the senator from Maryland really wants to bring the illegal El Salvadorian gang member back from El Salvador back to Maryland. Free speech is under attack, but Rumble refuses to back down. We've always believed in empowering voices no matter how unpopular, and now we're taking that fight to the next level. When major advertisers conspired to pull their dollars, even brands like Dunkin' Donuts turned their backs, claiming Rumble had a right-wing culture. But we're not here to fit a mold, we're here to defend free expression. To strengthen this mission, we're excited to offer Rumble Premium, a completely ad-free experience with exclusive benefits for viewers and creators. You'll find exclusive content from creators like Russell Brand, Dr. Disrespect, Timcast, and the Mug Club with Crowder. It's more than a subscription, it's a stand for free speech. Your voice matters. Join Rumble Premium. For a limited time, you can get $10 off an annual plan using promo code Rubin. Visit rumble.com/premium/Rubin and claim your discount today. Together, we can turn the tide. Whether you join Rumble Premium or simply keep watching, your support helps keep free speech alive. All right, so we've been talking about this illegal El Salvadorian MS-13 gang member who was living in Maryland, who's been picked up by ICE and sent back to El Salvador. Yesterday, I explained this story using some of the kids' Duplo. That's Lego toys for even smaller kids. They do Duplo first because they're a little bit bigger, easier to do than Lego. But people were really into it. And then later on, I busted out my old school Soundwave to further explain it. We've also got today, we're going to up the level when it comes to the toys. I've got these other Transformer figures for the kids. I bought these and they love them. And interestingly, on the box for these toys, it says that they're collector's items, not toys. Which really, no, you can't play with these things? Like, what am I doing all day? Anyway, just one more time, very quickly, let me explain what has happened. So Megatron here, the leader of the Decepticons, he's going to be the illegal El Salvadorian MS-13 gang member who was beating his wife. He came illegally into the country and was beating his wife and living in Maryland. Then, and this doesn't fully make sense because we've got, well, here, this is the Bumblebee, the Autobot. He will be the ICE agent. He then took Megatron and he brought him back to his country of origin, right? And now he's there. And I should have some other toys here because now Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen, who nobody heard of a week ago, but suddenly is a big star in the Democrat Party because he cares more about illegals than his own citizens. He now has gone to El Salvador because he wants to punch Bumblebee, the ICE agent, in the face and bring back evil Megatron and bring him back to Maryland. That's what's going on here. And here is Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen in El Salvador.
I just landed at the airport in San Salvador a little while ago. I'm now en route into the city, looking forward to meeting with the team from the American Embassy. And I do want to thank our Foreign Service officers and the whole team at this embassy and embassies around the world for all the good work they do on behalf of our country. I'm proud to co-chair the bipartisan Foreign Service Caucus that stands up for the men and women who are serving our country overseas and at home in the State Department. After that, I hope to meet with some high-level government officials from El Salvador. As I've said before, the goal of my visit is to talk to people here about the release of Kilmar Ábrego García. I told his wife and his family I would do everything possible to bring him home, and we're going to keep working at this until we're successful. I also hope to have the chance to meet with him, but we'll have a better idea if that works out a little later on.
All right, listen, it's always nice to listen to a middle-aged white guy, that's just refreshing these days. But because he's a Democrat, he just is a complete idiot. There's just no way to describe it more than that. He thinks he's on some mission to be the good guy, to save another good guy. But Megatron, the leader of the Decepticons, who built the space bridge and was trying to crash Cybertron into Earth and all of the other stuff that he did, like beating his wife in Maryland, okay? He's not the good guy. He's also not a citizen of the United States of America. Megatron is a citizen of Cybertron, and he was illegally invading Earth. And this El Salvadorian MS-13 gang member is a citizen of El Salvador. So he's literally trying to take someone who is at least, okay, you got it. You got it. But somehow he's trying to be the good guy. And by the way, it's your tax dollars, Maryland people, that are paying for this buffoon to do that. Of course, he did get there, and then the El Salvadorians were like, they don't call them El Salvadorians, they're just Salvadorians. Someone brought that up yesterday. Dave, stop saying El Salvadorians. It's El Salvador, the country. The people are Salvadorians. By the way, I've been there, as I mentioned, and one of the things that's interesting, I don't know if it still is, but I was there about 15 years ago when it, again, was a true third world country. When you land in San Salvador, which is, I think, the biggest city in El Salvador, it smells like almost like smoke and marshmallows and kind of burning barbecue. And for the first few minutes there, you think it's kind of good. When I got off the plane, I was like, that's kind of pleasant. And what you found out later, and again, I don't know if this is still how it is that it was actually burning garbage because they didn't even have garbage to be picked up in residential areas. So people would literally just burn their garbage. And the first few minutes you smell it, it kind of smells good. And then when you realize you're literally smelling poop and burnt electronics and rubber, less good. In any event, he gets to San Salvador, and Bukele and his cadre of Salvadorian goons, they are just not letting him meet Kilmar Ábrego García, the illegal El Salvadorian MS-13 gang member in an El Salvadorian jail.
I also told his wife and family that I would try to meet with Mr. Ábrego García while I was here. So I asked the vice president if I could meet with Mr. Ábrego García. And he said, well, you need to make earlier provisions to go visit CCOT. I said, I'm not interested at this moment in taking a tour of CCOT. I just want to meet with Mr. Ábrego García. He said he was not able to make that happen.
So look, El Salvador is just not playing around. Bukele is not playing around. He's their citizen. And again, why does this guy from Maryland care so much about a guy who was in MS-13, who also was beating his wife repeatedly? We'll have more on that in just a second. Why does he care so much about that? Do we have the image that we think is an actual real image? We have what we believe is a 100% real, not deep fake AI image of Mr. Van Hollen. And there he is a little bit after that press conference joining MS-13. Nobody will know what is real in the future, but why not, dude? Like, why not go all in on this nonsense? Anyway, I mentioned up top, I am actually officially, as of today's show, I am retiring the phrase, the televised mental institution known as MSNBC. We are retiring that. We took it very far. People started using it all over the internet. We are officially referring to MSNBC henceforth as MSNBC 13. I accidentally said it on the show yesterday. People were really into it. And now we're going to show you a clip of MSNBC 13, and I think we have a brand new bumper.
Brought to you by MSNBC 13. If there's an illegal alien criminal out there, we have their back.
Art is just a gross violation of basic human rights and human decency. And, I asked the vice president if I came back next week, whether or not I could go visit Kilmar. And the answer was no, he couldn't guarantee that. I said, look, I may be the first member of Congress here, the first senator, but I can assure you more will be coming. And you cannot continue to keep this man locked up in this worst prison in El Salvador.
You can't keep this man locked up in El Salvador who's from El Salvador and who is not legally here in America. Okay, keep going, Dems. Keep going with this nonsense. White House spokeswoman Karoline Leavitt, who again has just been an absolute all-star, like across the board on every issue. Here she is just like nailing Van Hollen and explaining what's going on here.
Today we have officially learned Democrat officials still refuse to accept the will of the American people. Maryland Democrat Senator Chris Van Hollen rushed to Dulles Airport this morning to fly to El Salvador, potentially using taxpayer dollars, to demand the release of deported, illegal, alien MS-13 terrorists. The Democrats and the media in this room have continually and wrongly labeled Kilmar Ábrego García as a Maryland father. There is no Maryland father. Let me reiterate. Kilmar Ábrego García is an illegal alien, MS-13 gang member and foreign terrorist who was deported back to his home country. And when Kilmar Ábrego García was originally arrested, he was wearing a sweatshirt with rolls of money covering the ears, mouth, and eyes of presidents on various currency denominations. This is a known MS-13 gang symbol of hear no evil, speak no evil, see no evil.
I mean, she's just good. She's just really good. And again, let me just reiterate, again, even if he was not an illegal gang member who wasn't beating his wife, and we'll have more on that in just a moment, even so, he has been deported back to his country of origin. No one is debating, although they're lying about it on CNN and MSNBC, no serious person is debating whether he was legal or illegal. Everyone knows he was illegal, in which case, if they catch you, yeah, it kind of sucks, I suppose, because there are some good people here. It doesn't seem like he was one of them, and we do have more on that from Bill Malugin over at Fox News. Fox News has obtained the written domestic violence allegations from Kilmar Ábrego Garcia's wife in 2021, in which she alleges he is a repeat wife beater and writes, "At this point, I am afraid to be close to him. I have multiple photos and videos of how violent he can be and all the bruises he has left me." In her own handwriting, she alleges that Ábrego Garcia punched and scratched her on the eye, leaving her bleeding after throwing her laptop on the floor. She writes that on another day, he got angry yet again, started yelling, and ripped her shirt and shorts off, then grabbed her arm, leaving marks. She also writes that 2 times in 2020, he hit her. In November 2020, he hit me with his work boot. In August 2020, he hit me in the eye, leaving his purple eye. So again, this is the person who, on top of just being here illegal, this wife beater is the person that the Maryland senator and MSNBC and CNN and all the usual suspects are defending right now. Now, interestingly, you saw an older woman that was standing next to Karoline Leavitt there at the White House. She is the mother of a woman by the name of Rachel Morin. Rachel Morin was a Maryland mother of 5, 37 years old, mother of 5, who was raped and killed by an MS-13 gang member. Not this guy, just another one. Well, they let Rachel's mother, 37 years old mother of 5, raped and killed by one of these people. Really try to, we just talk about these stories so you can't like take them in. You can't take them in, but try to imagine that. These 5 kids now who don't have their mom anymore because of an MS-13 gang member, of which this guy that we're talking about right now was in. Here's her mother, Patty, talking about the absurdity of Van Hollen's trip.
To have a senator from Maryland who didn't even acknowledge or barely acknowledge my daughter and the brutal death that she endured, leaving her 5 children without a mother and now a grandbaby without a grandmother, so that he can use my taxpayer money to fly to El Salvador to bring back someone that's not even an American citizen. Why does that person have more right than I do, or my daughter, or my grandchildren? I don't understand this.
She was killed on August 6, 2023. Joe Biden never said her name. We have no record of it. We just checked. Joe Biden never said her name. And yet you've got the entire Democrat Party, from Cory Booker and AOC and Bernie Sanders, and this Maryland buffoon, are all simping for a guy who beat his wife, came here illegally, was a gang member, et cetera, et cetera. Like, if you can't, they're making this really easy for us. They really are. That might be the silver lining in all of this. You know, I keep saying that Trump is doing the 80-20 thing, right? He's able to take what 80% of us realize is right and true and good, and then he gets them to go crazy about 20%. 20% of nonsense. Like, they think they're the good guys with their suicidal empathy as they're destroying the very liberal society that they should want to live in or purport to want to live in. Eric Daughtry from Florida Voice News, I thought he had a good tweet on this. He wrote, Trump is the compassion president, compassion for Americans, not criminals. And there you see the mother. And it's just, I mean, imagine that. Imagine that. She's now, my guess is she's probably in effect now the mother of those 5 kids who lost their mom to an MS-13 gang member who raped and killed their mother. It is absolutely insane. Speaking of insane, CNN, they have their little panel show with that Abby Phillips, and this woman is just like, there's just nothing going on. She blinks a lot, but there's just nothing happening in her head. They gave Scott Jennings the day off, and Shermichael Singleton did a nice job there explaining what's going on here. And of course, that did not make one of the other panelists happy. Take a look.
I think it is a political issue. I also think it's a national security issue. Prince George's County in 2019, their gang unit determined that Garcia was an MS-13 gang member. His wife in 2021, the wife that's now giving lengthy testimonies about how great he is, said that he's a serial abuser, and she has a ton of photos to showcase said abuse. I agree, due process is absolutely important. We want to maintain that, but I think there's absolutely enough here to send this guy somewhere else. One, he's already broken the law. We've already established that. Now you do have evidence suggesting that he was a member or is a member of MS-13. He's also a serial abuser. This is not the type of individual I don't think any one of us would want in our country. He should be deported.
But respectfully, Shermichael, we can't make it about Kilmar. Like, that's just one person.
But that's the case we're talking about.
That is, but I guess if we look at the macro and not the micro and just look at
That line is just so, we can't look at the guy we're talking about right now. We're talking about a story because there's a Maryland senator hanging out in El Salvador trying to bring the guy who was illegal in Maryland back. But we can't make it about that. We got to talk about the macro, right? Because if you were actually going to talk about the specifics, if you were going to actually talk about the wife that was beaten, you would look pretty stupid. But this is what you guys do with everything, and good luck with all that. I do want to make one other point about Megatron. Megatron was not a good guy, okay? He wasn't. 1985, Transformers movie. I saw it in the movie theater with my brother and my grandma. She fell asleep the entire time. Miss your grandma, Mimi. What did Megatron do in that movie? He led the onslaught against Autobot City. He kills Optimus Prime. Then Astrotrain takes him out into space. He's pretty broken down from that fight because Optimus got him at the last minute. He gets spun out into space. Who does he bump into? Yeah, Galvatron. Unicron. And what does Unicron do? He gives him a new body, names him Galvatron, and then Galvatron tries to kill Rodimus Prime, who Optimus Prime had given the Matrix of Leadership to. Okay, so is he a good guy? Let's talk about PDS debt. You know, I've always said that staying true to yourself is the true key to success, and that applies to how you deal with your finances as well. So if you're feeling buried under credit card debt, personal loans, or medical bills, I get it. I've been there. And I wish a service like PDS Debt existed back when I was dealing with all that nonsense. PDS Debt is a game changer. They don't just help you manage debt, they help you take back control. They actually take the time to understand your specific situation and then create a custom personalized plan that fits your life. And here's the best part. There's no minimum credit score required. So if you're sitting there feeling stuck, here's what I want you to do. Go to pdsdebt.com/Rubin and get your free debt analysis now. That's pdsdebt.com/Rubin. Go take back control. RubinReport.locals.com community Q&A. Here we go. I've got Joseph at the computer, which has internet. It is connected via wire into the wall. I don't know where that goes, but if you want to get a question in on the fly, you can do that at RubinReport.locals.com. Talway says, what are your thoughts on the UK Supreme Court ruling that trans women are still men? And if that can happen in the very liberal Britain, do you think it will help our Supreme Court and others here in the US to follow suit? So yes, as of yesterday, the UK Supreme Court decided that men are men and women are women. And just because you chop your nuts off doesn't make you a chick. The fact that a country that is, a couple thousand years old, basically, that they had to deal with that in 2025 kind of shows you the rot that we've been dealing with for quite some time. But your point is well taken. A place that has gone so off the rails with everything woke and with all of the immigration stuff and everything else, the fact that they can finally legally make a distinction between penises and vaginas, I guess is pretty good. Does that give me any hope here? Well, look, it seems to me that because we are culturally shifting right now, I don't know that there's going to be a case that's going to get all the way up to the Supreme Court as it relates to the transgender nonsense. Now, the problem is that if it does, let's not forget that when Ketanji Brown Jackson, who is the newest member of the Supreme Court, when Marsha Blackburn asked her if she could say what a woman is, she did not know. So I don't know what would happen if a case like that got to the Supreme Court. What I would prefer happen is that just culturally we move on so that school districts and places of work and employment and everything else, that they deal with these things internally and properly, and you deal with it within your family yourself. And then, as I always say, and I'm actually getting tired of saying it, we live in a country with equality under the law, equal protection under the law, individual rights. So if you are a legal adult and you wish to do whatever you want to your body, you wish to put on a wig, you wish to change your name and all of those things, if you treat me with respect, I'll treat you with respect. That's separate from the legal part. But to bludgeon people and demand that they say something that is not true does not work, and hopefully it doesn't even have to get to the Supreme Court. Mark says, so we have a week and a half left before the Canadian election on April 28th. Do you think it would be that you could find some time to get Maxime Bernier on the show? He's the only Canada First non-globalist leader, and the legacy media in Canada won't give him any time. So I've done a couple events over the years. I think we have some B-roll of me with Maxime, and he's been in studio. That was a Skype thing we did about 2 years ago, but he's been in studio a couple of years ago when he was really just fledging. That was just like a fledgling party, the People's Party of Canada, and they really now have become something. I will say, well, first off, yes, I'm more than happy to have him on, so we'll reach out and hopefully we can make it happen before. I would also be happy to have Pierre Polivet on, who I've been looped in with, and it just seems to have gone nowhere. It seems to me that one of the frustrations that people are having with Polivet is that, which Jordan Peterson always says, his name is spelled in such a way that it's basically impossible to pronounce correctly, even if you're Canadian. That he's largely avoided podcasts, right? This is sort of the Kamala Harris thing. So I would interview him. I think we're going to have Danielle Smith, who's the premier of Western, like the Calgary part of Canada. I think we're going to have her on at some point. I talk about it all the time. We talk about Canada a lot on this show. I think Canada's in a very precarious position, and I don't know that they can survive another liberal government that will import all these people and not defend native Canadians, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, I'd be happy to have him on. I'd be happy to have Pierre on. And I'll even have, what's his name on? The guy, Carney. Not that he would do it, but you want to come on? Sure. And I'll even have the other guy whenever he gets back, when he comes back from dance class or whatever, I could have Justin Trudeau back on. Elizabeth says, have you ever asked AI to make a human version of Clyde? I did it with my dogs this week, and it turned out really well. Well, interestingly, yes, we have the image. We put it... So that's Clyde. That was taken right before we left Los Angeles. So he's aged a little bit since then. But there you go. AI took Clyde, and Clyde is, I would say, a rather dapper, maybe 36-year-old black man thinking about some shit. I don't know why they made him black. I don't know. But they did. That's just fine with me. And well, I named him after Clyde Drexler, who is black, so maybe that had something to do with it. Olaf says, what is your favorite vegetable to grow in the garden? So we built out this really amazing garden here that I'm so proud of. We've shown you some stuff before. Did we take a picture today? Yeah, so right now, because it's getting hotter right now, we're in the middle of a transition phase. So those are obviously tomatoes, and it's very hard to grow tomatoes here because they need a little flowing air, which we're not getting a ton of right now. They need a little more shade, but we're growing all sorts of herbs, and we're doing a lot of arugula, actually, which is doing pretty well. And we've got a lot of citrus growing and mangoes and whatever, and some other papayas are crushing it right now. But it is trickier here in Florida to grow certain things because of the heat and the humidity. So right now, yeah, that's it. But the herbs are the main thing that we use on a day-to-day basis. I'm constantly taking rosemary and basil and thyme and a couple other things that we've got down there. Harmick Air says, when does a senator go to Gaza to free the American citizens being held there illegally? And I glanced at the questions this morning. Man, you sparked something in my brain. What a good question that is. So just to be clear, what we have right now is a senator from Maryland who is trying to take a bad guy, Megatron, who moved to Maryland. He's now back home on Cybertron and bring him back to Maryland. And the entire machine, that's what AOC is screaming about, Bernie Sanders is screaming out, all the Democrats are screaming about this illegal gang member who beat his wife, who shouldn't have been in this country in the first place. They're all going crazy at it. Meanwhile, there's at least one American. We think one American left. His name is Eden Alexander, I think. Can we confirm that? His name is Eden Alexander. Is that right? The fact that I don't know for sure off the top of my head tells you how ridiculous it is. But there is an American who right now is somewhere from New Jersey. I think he's from Bloomfield, New Jersey. Eden Alexander, yeah. I think he's from Bloomfield, New Jersey. He is right now somewhere underneath a tunnel in Gaza. Now, they probably also have the remains of Americans. Why is it that not one senator has gone to Gaza? Where is the senator from New Jersey? Or could it be that they know if they go to Gaza that Hamas would behead or disembowel or murder them as well. And then that kind of makes you think about some other stuff, doesn't it? But it's a great point. I'm going to push that more and more. I'll tweet that later because I think it's a really, really great point. You have all of these Democrats going bananas about an illegal gang member. Meanwhile, there is at least one American citizen who is in the gates of hell right now, and they don't care. And that really does make you wonder. 1775 coffee, and then more on the other side. Imagine winning a prize worth over $100,000 just for drinking coffee. A brand new Cybertruck and $30,000 in cash could be yours, but this is your last week to enter. It ends April 20th. 1775 Coffee is fueling this giveaway, and every dollar you spend equals an entry. No hoops, no selling your data to some tech giant, just small batch coffee that proudly supports free speech. It's the official coffee of free thinkers, hard workers, and the Rumble crowd that doesn't cave to the narrative. If Rumble is the platform for uncensored truth, 1775 is the coffee that keeps it all moving. Go to 1775coffee.com and use code Rubin to save 15% and enter the giveaway before it ends. This is a good one. A Different View says, so where did this attitude about the millionaires and the billionaires come from? What I do not get is that AOC and Bernie Sanders treat being rich as inherently evil, as if no other people have the opportunity to get rich. It's a great question. So first off, what they've done is the most low resolution thing. It is the most base level thing you can possibly do in politics, which is, oh, those people have something, you don't have it. Let's take what they have and give it to you. And we'll do that in the name of us being good people. We'll take from someone else what they rightly earned themselves with their own blood, sweat, and tears, and we will take it and do what we want with it because we're the empathetic good guys. It is the most like simplistic, drivelous nonsense ever. If you had, I can tell you with 2 kids right now, sometimes if Justin has something and Luke just wants it and grabs it from him or vice versa, you have to explain, well, he's playing with it, he built those Legos, that's not for you right now. Like you can't just do that. But we have somehow made jealousy of other people's stuff a good thing. Not we, the Democrats have done this. This is what the progressives have done more than anything else. Bernie is the most twisted example of this because for decades, Bernie, you can go back to all of those videos, 80s, 90s, early 2000s videos. Bernie was always railing against millionaires. And then you know what happened? Bernie became a millionaire. And then he started ranting against billionaires. And you know, it is true, some people have more. That is absolutely true. And some people can kind of walk into it and stumble into it. It could be luck sometimes, but it usually isn't. And yes, you know, it's also true. Some people are handed an awful lot. That absolutely is true. But you know what also happens at increasingly high numbers? People that are handed a bunch of stuff, they don't know how to keep it. They don't know how to work with it. They end up wasting a lot of it and generational wealth disappears. Some people become really wealthy, teach their kids the right thing, show them how to do business or whatever it might be, give them opportunities, open some doors, and then they are able to do good things. But it still falls back on you. But all of that aside, I have had times in my life when I was dirt poor, literally going into my roommate Mike. Mike, how are you? I haven't seen you in a while. My roommate Mike's room, this is around, I was probably 25 years old, doing stand-up, scrounging for change, literally going into his coffee cup full of change to buy a cup of coffees at Zabar's on the Upper West Side. Basically had nothing. I just told you earlier about the tuna that my buddy was delivering me. But that didn't mean and I had friends that had a lot. And sometimes my friends would take me out to dinner and I couldn't take them out to dinner. And now it's different. Now I've worked very hard. I've built 2 companies. I'm doing a whole bunch of other things. I've written books. My tequila is coming out, by the way. There was a whole production thing. It's coming out soon. We may just hold it till June for my birthday and release it that day. Maybe May, we'll see. But I'm working on several other businesses that we're going to announce in the next little bit. And I'm working really hard. And then by me working hard, it creates value that then the people that work for me, then they get good salaries. They can do more things that they want. This idea, something happened in America that took us from, oh, that's success, I want to aim to that. Instead being like, I want to hack away at all of those people. And it's just crazy. You remember yesterday we showed you the most expensive house in Miami. What was it, 135 mil, something like that? And it's like, would I like that house? Yes, but I don't have that kind of money. Now I could work real hard to get that house. $135 million house, probably not happening for me. But you see the point, like it wouldn't be right of me to like walk into somebody's house and be like, you got all this shit, I want that shit. But that's what the entire progressive ethos is based on. and it's really, really dangerous. Rachel says, are you back to shooting hoops? So let me just tell you real quick. We're gonna show you a video in a second. I'm telling you, I got the stem cells 1 week ago today. So 1 week ago, right this very moment, it was about 11:30 or so on Thursday last week, I went to Naples. Dr. Richie Striano, who is like the best guy in the States at this, he was recommended to me by Tony Robbins, who knows all about this stuff and has written many books about it and talks about it endlessly. He said, go to Richie in Naples. I go there. They took some fat out of my back. I actually have some pretty significant bruises right now in my back. It's pretty mangled back there. But then they take the adipose tissue, they spin it through a centrifuge. They get what Dr. Striano calls the coral reef of stem cells. So you're getting all of your good stuff. And then they inject it back into you. So I had about 15 tears in my knee, like little tears he described. I didn't have full breaks, but your joints and your cartilage and your ligaments, all that stuff, it's like a rope. And when a rope rips, it doesn't just rip in half like that. You could have all these different strands that are ripping away. So he injected all of those individually. Then I've been having some shoulder pain. It turns out that I did have a pretty significant tear. And we videoed all of this. We're gonna make a little doc about it that you'll see. Anyway, he put that in there. My shoulder is feeling way, way better. I can move my arm again. I could barely move my arm. Knees starting to feel better. So just yesterday, for the first time, less than a week after doing the stem cells, when I have not jumped, I have not done cardio once, I'm taking walks, that's it. Yesterday, I got on the court and I took my first 5 shots. I shot this video for the guys that I play ball with because they play ball on Wednesdays. I shot this for them, and let's see, do I still have the shot? Let's see it. All right, guys, it's Wednesday and I'm jonesing to play. Mangled the knee 6 weeks ago. I got some of Frank's extra stem cells. This is the first time I've been on the court. Let's see if I've still got it. Here we go. Come on, one more. Here we go. Nothing, guys. No applause. No, oh my God, that was amazing. Yeah, thank you. 4 or 5, not bad for a guy. Not bad for a guy that hasn't shot in 6 weeks. And I really haven't even jumped. I was a little worried about that. But I'm feeling way, way better. And this is, you get an anti-inflammatory burst at first. That's what Dr. Striano has explained to me by doing stem cells. I also did it intravenously and I did the hyperbaric chamber. And now it'll start the healing process. So I'm hoping to play in like a month or 6 weeks. It's completely crazy. By the way, stem cells are extremely, extremely expensive. They are. And I had to pay an awful lot of money for it. I did. But my hope is, and the reason that we took the team there, I took Joey and Joseph there with me and we shot all this film around it and we'll do this 20 or 30 minute documentary. And then once we put that up, I want to get Dr. Striano in here to talk about it, is because the more people know about it and the more people do it, the cheaper it will become. That's one of the beauties of capitalism, right? Like technologies over time. If you bought a VCR in 1984, it cost like $750. You bought a VCR by the time it was 1992 and it was basically $29.99. So that is the point. That is the point. A basic television probably back in the day, like 5K? If you bought I remember I bought a 42-inch Samsung flat screen plasma. I bought that thing in 2010. It was $2,500. You could go to Costco right now and get probably, how much is I'm gonna guess a 75-inch LED at Costco right now, probably, I'm gonna guess $400. And I bet you can get it for cheaper. What do you think? About $400. And the point is that you get early adopters in that can afford some of these things. And then as they scale, then you're able to push the costs down. That's something that Bernie and AOC should learn about as well. Anyway, so we're gonna have that up for you soon. We're also gonna have the Frankie Valli documentary and the interview, that'll be up soon, and a couple other things outside of the studio as well, so stay tuned. TD Fink says, why are Democrats attacking Trump over tariffs when his strategy is actually pushing other countries to lower or eliminate them, something they've historically supported? Well, TD Fink, I think you know the answer to that, which is that if Trump does something, it must be bad, right? Everyone, if you would remove Trump from all of this, if you were just looking at a piece of paper here, and you were just like, should we have more fair trade deals? Everyone would say yes. Everyone would say yes. So again, this was just one of those things, like, why did I not get this thing wrong? If you just look at all the shows we did over the last couple of weeks, why the entire time was I like, I wasn't even taking a position on tariffs, right? Like, I played you a Thomas Sowell clip, who I respect more than any other economist in the world, basically saying, well, tariffs are bad. basically saying tariffs are bad. And then I was also saying, to the backdrop of that, is that Trump is just using this as a negotiation point. And what happened? Trump used it as a negotiation point, and 70 countries came to us. Thus, Trump paused for 90 days while we renegotiate all these deals, and we're working on China. So the answer to your question is Trump derangement syndrome rots the brain and it rots the soul. We are getting better deals. It's obvious, it's real, and it's happening. Dennis says, what was Frankie Valli like? I remember you talking about trying to get him to perform at your birthday. Yeah, it's true. So that was 90 years old. That was right after sound check. It really was one of the most enjoyable interviews that I've ever done. Like, you know, somebody that I've just loved his music, the music of the Four Seasons. I just love 60s, 70s, you know, and the thing is that their music, you know, it went from like kind of doo-wop stuff and Sherry and Big Girls Don't Cry and all that stuff. And then he kind of had a disco phase. There's a lot of jazz in there. There's big band stuff. I've Got You Under My Skin, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, I showed him the kids dance. I don't know that we're going to show this in the doc, but I showed him a video of the kids dancing to my favorite Frankie Valli song, which is Soul, which is a disco song that I think he did around 1980. And I showed him the kids dancing to it, and he was so happy, and he was asking me about, do they play music? And I was talking about how we have a little piano for them and a harmonica and all of this stuff. That was the stuff that he really lit up about. And then going to the concert that night, he was just great. Like somebody, look, 90 years old. 90 years old, we can all have the debate, you know, what, you know, someone, it's like a basketball player or any professional athlete. Do you retire when you're absolutely at the top, when you've won MVP or you won the Grammy and you just walk away at the top of your game? Or do you keep doing it for the love as long as you can? And he did say something to the effect, I said sort of like, why are you still doing it after all these years? Or what would young Frankie Valli, 1962 Frankie Valli, think of 90-year-old Frankie Valli doing this? And he said something kind of, it was very off the cuff. It was just like, it makes people happy. And that really is the truth. So you sit in a room then that night with, I don't know, about 5,000 people in the auditorium, and everybody was happy the entire time. There was not a moment where people were not happy. And if you can do that when you're 90 years old, it's pretty freaking awesome. Jeff says, how does someone like Tim Walz, who constantly lies and appears incompetent, manage to persist in the real world with such suspicious longevity? I mean, you're literally asking me about any Democrat. You're asking me about any Democrat. Give me a Democrat, and I'll show you someone. Gavin Newsom destroys everything he touches except his bank account, right? AOC, what has she done that is good besides upend the American system? Bernie is the obvious example. Bernie, 40 years in Senate, doesn't have one major piece of legislation in his name. All he has done is teach young people that they live in a horrible system that's systemically racist and now run by oligarchs, right? Like, it's absolutely incredible. He somehow didn't mind the oligarchy that was running during Biden's administration, even though it was the Democrats that took him out in the primary years ago. So I don't know, Tim Walz, he's just another, that's the thing, they all become interchangeable parts. Tim Walz will be gone as quickly as he came in. It's like, what's his name? Who's Tom Keene, right? Or is it Tim Keene? Tom? It was Tim. It's Tim Kaine. Right, that's the point. They're all interchangeable parts with names that all kind of sound the same. He was the guy that ran for VP under Hillary, and everyone was like, oh my God, he's the new face. And then, well, he's become nothing. And Tim Walz will become nothing and everything else. Donald Trump has just fundamentally changed the game. And it's one of the reasons why, when I showed you, I guess it was on Monday, that picture in the Oval Office where you've got Pete Hegseth sitting there, and you've got Tulsi in the background, and you've got Stephen Miller there and Marco Rubio. You have a cadre now of qualified people. It does not mean they will do everything right, but it does mean they're qualified for the job. And that is so far from what we had just months ago that we need to like really understand that. Kevin says, is your disgruntled plain face your old liberal face? So I posted this on Locals a couple weeks ago. Not sure where I was going, but we were stuck on the tarmac for a couple hours, and that's Dave, disgruntled, on the plane, not happy. I don't even think they were giving us water. I had to pee. There was a long line. Is that, yes, it's really true. When I was more on the left, whatever you want to call that, I was not as happy. There is a reason these people are angrier. They are always, they never think anything boils down to their autonomy over their lives. And you become angrier. And that's why so many of them are so hysterical. It's why so many of them are so out of shape. It's why so many of them are apoplectic when you say basic truths to them. And then what I have consistently found is that conservative-leaning people live and let live people, or people who have some belief outside of pure politics, they understand that the world is what it is, and you can kind of move it on the margins. Not, I demand that the world be what I want it to be. You will ultimately be happier. So I watch old videos of mine, and sometimes I had some health problems also and whatever. So I watch them, and sometimes they're hard to watch. So yes, I'm happier now. So I guess that was my resting liberal face. They call it the resting bitch face. That was my resting liberal face. Jeffrey Cruel, one more. Can you comment on the Florida Gators winning the 2025 NCAA Division I men's basketball tournament? So, first off, I want to give credit where credit is due. Yesterday, Christy stole the show here, okay? Christy, who is my assistant and does all sorts of other stuff, she came in, I was doing a little singing. I was singing the Titanic theme song, and she came in. She's got an unbelievable voice. She came in, she did a little sing, and I gave her the mic. I saw the comments. You guys were loving her. Maybe we'll get her singing a little bit more. Christy also won the official Rubin Report NCAA basketball championship tournament that we did here, which I believe was a $200 Amazon gift card. In the final match, it was just me versus her. I had Houston beating Florida. She actually, I think, had Duke beating Florida, but ended up with more points than me. And these suckers here, absolutely nothing. I had Houston winning just because, I love Clyde the Glide, and he was a Houston Cougar and then a Houston Rocket. So I picked them, but obviously I'm thrilled that a Florida team won it, so go Gators. I thank you for watching. We have a panel show tomorrow with James Lindsay and, not Melissa, and Winston. Oh, yeah, and Winston Marshall. We got a great panel for you tomorrow. I'm very excited about that. Post-game show in moments, rubinreport.locals.com. Goodbye.
It's 50 years. It's hell turning 40 years old anyway. We're back in...